Devaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear viewers, thank you for joining. Wanted to seek the blessings of Brother Mata, Brother Shyam Satishvara, Bal Gopal, Gaurnitai, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, the assembled devotees, so that we can do an overview of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's have a quick look at the first 17 chapters. So Arjun, having been taken into the middle of the battlefield by Krishna, became confused about his duty, and he didn't want to fight anymore, giving very good excuses as to why he should not fight against the Kauravas. And he asked Krishna to help him. And Krishna revealed his identity as the Atma. So immediately taking Arjuna onto the spiritual platform. He also talks about how one should do one's duty, and the person who does his duty, what he's like. Because Arjuna asks him, how does he talk? How does he walk? Krishna explains this in the second chapter. In the third chapter, Krishna talks about karma yoga, how one should not be attached to the fruits of one's labor. One can do one's duty, and if one is not attached to those fruits of the duty, one remains sinless and actually begins the path of karma yoga. And then Krishna describes dhyana yoga, how to obtain transcendental knowledge and the importance of transcendental knowledge. And in the fifth chapter, Krishna describes karma yoga in practice, how to perform karma yoga, but also in a way that one attaches the fruits to Krishna. And that becomes nishkam karma yoga, very powerful karma yoga. And it's very, very close to bhakti yoga. Then Krishna describes in the sixth chapter, but Astanga yoga or dhyana yoga, and how to control the mind. And Arjuna becomes a little perplexed because Krishna's description of the process of Astanga yoga was very difficult to fulfill. So Arjuna asks, what happens to that person who fails in his attempt in spirituality? He's neither in the spiritual world nor is he in the material world. What happens to him? And so Krishna then describes that the transcendentalist is never unsuccessful. He will always protect the yogis, the devotees. And then the seventh chapter is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga section of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna describes knowledge about himself, where he can be perceived, and who approaches him and who doesn't approach Krishna. And also Krishna describes the process of demigod worship, how those fruits from the demigods are limited and temporary. And in the eighth chapter, Arjuna asks several questions, and then Krishna describes the answer to his last question in great detail about what happens at the time of death, how one should remember the Lord at the time of death and attain the spiritual world. And then in the ninth chapter, which is called confidential knowledge, Krishna describes how his nature is very difficult to understand. It's inconceivable. And again, he describes how if one worships the demigods, then what happens to that person? Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, which is still in this world. But he also describes one who worships him, Krishna, goes to the spiritual world, which is beyond this world. Then in the 10th chapter, Krishna describes where he can be perceived in this world. And he gives 82 different places where he can be perceived. And he says, this is just a fragment of my strength. It's hardly anything. And then the 11th chapter, Krishna describes or shows Arjuna his universal form. And which is amazing, and that frightens Arjuna. And he realizes the greatness of Krishna. In the 12th chapter is the end of the Bhakti Yoga session, and he ends it by the whole chapter talks about Bhakti Yoga. Such a powerful chapter. How it's better to worship Krishna's personal form rather than his impersonal form. And also Krishna describes the process of Bhakti Yoga. In this chapter also Krishna glorifies his devotees, the Bhakta Astakam. And 4 times in the 8 lokas, he says that devotee who is steady in both happiness and distress is very dear to him. So very powerful. 13th chapter is the beginning of Jnana Yoga. And this is where Arjuna asks several questions about this world, and Krishna provides him knowledge about the field, the knower of the field, the material world. He also talks about Purush, etc. 14th chapter describes the 3 modes of material nature, how they act, how they impact us, how we can become free from them. In the 15th chapter, Krishna talks about himself a little bit, Purushottam Yoga. He talks about this material world, how it's upside down from the spiritual world. He describes a little bit about the spiritual world. He talks about the jiva, but then he talks about the super soul, this Paramatma. 16th chapter, Krishna describes the divine and demoniac qualities, and he goes into some detail regards the demoniac qualities so that we can recognize those qualities and try to avoid them. Lust, anger, and greed being the main 3 to avoid. And in the 17th chapter, which we talked about yesterday, Krishna talks about the different types of worship, foods, charities, austerities, according to the 3 modes of material nature. And depending on where one is in this world, in terms of their nature, whether they're in Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun, it will have an impact on how they worship God, what foods they eat, how they give charity, what austerities they perform. And now is the conclusion, the 18th chapter. I think we probably have 2 sessions if we don't finish it today. So summary of the 18th chapter, it's a final summary of the Bhagavad Gita. After systematically outlining various spiritual truths, Krishna offers his Paramamvacha, final words, which are: one should take up Bhakti Yoga, the most essential spiritual practice. And it's outlined in practically every chapter of this conversation, except the first chapter, because in the first chapter, Krishna hardly speaks. But in every chapter, pretty much Krishna talks about Bhakti Yoga. Thus, one is offered the opportunity of permanent happiness and fulfillment by achievement of Krishna consciousness, considered the perfection of renunciation. In such consciousness, an individual can smile in the face of all situations and circumstances, confident that the smiling Krishna is his constant companion and eternal friend. So if we are connected with Krishna, if we're connected with God, then no matter what situation we face, no matter how challenging our position may be in this material world, we will always have the understanding that the Lord is with us. He's our eternal friend. He's our eternal protector and guide and witness. So the individual will never feel unprotected. He'll feel fearless, no matter what the situation is. Because he knows that Krishna will not do anything which will harm him. Because Krishna is our eternal Father, our loving Father. So no matter what happens, he will always look after us. Even though we've forgotten him. Okay, the themes of this chapter are how to work in renunciation and the 5 causes of activity Remember, we were talking about how we are not the doers. So here Krishna gives a little bit more detail about who are the causes of activity. Then he talks about the three kinds of knowledge, three kinds of action, three kinds of happiness. Again, according to the three modes of material nature. He describes it in brief, the Varnashram system. And then he gives the final message to Arjuna. So let's take the first theme. Riyansh, would you like to read?
Text 1. Arjuna said, "Oh mighty one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, Tyaga, and after renounced the other of life, Sannyasa, O killer of Keshadeval, master of the senses." Text 2. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that appears on material desire is what great learned men call the starter of life, sannyasa, and giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga. Text 3. Some learned men declare that all kinds of ritual activity should be given up as faulty, yet other sages maintain that the acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Text 4. O best of Sparitas, now hear my wealth about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds. Text 5. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls.
Very good. Keep going.
Text 6. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Text 7. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Text 8. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. Text 9. O Arjuna, when one performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. Text. The intelligent renunciation situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work.
And this is the last lot.
Text level. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities, but he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. Text 1. For one who has not renounced the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. Text 2. O mighty Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes of accomplishment of all action. Now learn of this from me. Text 14. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. Text 15. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors.
Oh, there's a little bit more. Sorry.
Text 16. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Next title. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. Next statement. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the 3 factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the 3 constituents of action. Hare Krishna.
Well done. Well done. Thank you so much. So, see these 5 factors of action, place of action, which is our body, the kshetra, the performer, so that's the gyan kshetra, that's the soul. And the soul can only desire. We have a desire to fulfill. Various senses, these are controlled by the different demigods, the many different kinds of endeavor. Again, that's connected to desire. Endeavor connected to desire. Ultimately, the super soul who sanctions every action. So these are the 5 factors. We are one of them. We're one of them. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent. If we think we're the only doer in all this, we've got it wrong. This is what Krishna is saying. So let's have a look at the summary. If working in this world seems to attract karmic reaction and implicates us in a web of worldly complexity, is it not safer that we give up work? So why not, why not just go to the forest and forget about life? Forget about all of our work, because working, doing karma means a reaction. So what's the answer? No, Krishna disagrees. And he reiterates that activity is not bad per se. Doing your duty is not bad per se. In fact, you need to do your duty. By neglecting your duty, in fact, you are doing karma because you are not acting as you should be acting. So there's a reaction for that as well. The root of entanglement is the false ego, with which we perform the activity, thinking ourselves the controller and enjoyer. This is a basic problem, our false ego. We are thinking we are the doers. And as soon as we abandon that thought, that actually whatever we are desiring, that is being done by the different factors of action, the 5 different factors, then we'll understand we are not actually the doer. In reality, there are 5 causes which bring success to any activity: the individual soul, the body, the senses, the endeavor, and the super soul. Since we are only one of the 5, we should never overvalue estimation of ourselves, have an overvalued estimation of ourselves. That's why working in the spirit of detachment, offering the fruits of labor towards a transcendental goal, one can function in this world and simultaneously remain completely aloof. So this is the point. This is such a powerful point. Working in the spirit of detachment. Yes, I'm going to do my duty, but I'm not going to be attached to anything. I've come into this world with a particular body, with a particular level of intelligence. I will use that to the best of my ability, but I won't be attached to the family, attached to my possessions, because I know I'm the spirit soul and I don't belong in this world. But while I'm in this world, I will do my best. So one can function in this world and simultaneously remain completely unmoved. So here we need to understand there are 5 factors of action: us, the body, the senses, the endeavor, and the super soul. This is quite a powerful point, complex as well. It's a philosophical point.
Prabhuji?
Yes, Nariman.
Hare Krishna. What is the difference between the body and the senses? Does it mean the body like different limbs of the body, like our
Yes.
hands and the legs.
Yes, and earth, water, fire, air, ether, that's what constitutes the body.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we have, of course, the two types of bodies, subtle body and the gross body. So it's basically all of that, because without it, you can't do anything without the body. So it's one of the factors of action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Oh, while you're on, would you like to read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Very good.
Text 18. According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge, action, and performer of action. Now hear of them from me. Text 20. That knowledge by which one undivided individual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. Text 21. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. Text 22. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of the work as the one in all, without knowledge of the truth and what is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Text 23. That action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. Text 24. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desire and enacted from a sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion. Text 25. That action performed in illusion, in disregard of scripture injunctions, without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Text 26. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Text 27. The worker who is attached to work and the fruits of the work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. Text 28. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scriptures, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be worker in the mode of ignorance. Text 29. O winner of the wealth, now please listen as I tell you in detail of all the different kinds of understanding and determination according to the three modes of material nature. Text 30. O son of Prutha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. Text 31. O son of Prutha, that understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, is in the mode of passion. Text 32. That understanding which considers the irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction, O Partha, is in the mode of ignorance. Text 33. O son of Prutha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. Text 34. But that determination by which one holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification is in the nature of passion, O Arjuna. Text 35. And that determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion, such unintelligent determination, or son of Prutha, is in the mode of darkness. Text 36. O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. Text 37. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is like the nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. Text 38. That happiness which is derived from the contact of the senses with their objects, and which appear like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be in the nature of passion. Text 39. And that happiness which binds to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to the end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be the nature of ignorance. Text 40. There is no being existing either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems, which is freed from these three modes born of material nature.
Wow, a lot there, because Krishna is describing different aspects of our lives in terms of the three modes of material nature, like happiness and austerity. So a lot of verses there, but the essence is as follows. Looking around us, the reality is that most people are deeply engrossed within this material world. And Krishna pins this down to the material modes of nature that entangle each person according to their individual mentality. And Krishna explains how the modes influence our knowledge. So knowledge can be three types, that which is totally ignorant, that which is leads us to passion, that knowledge which takes us to higher planetary systems. Our actions similarly, action not to be done, are in the mode of ignorance. Actions which lead to reactions within this earth are in the mode of passion. And actions which take us to this heavenly planets are in Saptagun. And understanding can be in three modes as well as our determination. Determination, we find something hard, we give it up straight away. Can't even be bothered to make an effort. That's ignorance. That determination where we want to take full credit of everything we're doing, passion. That determination is because of duty. I will do this. Even if I fail, doesn't matter. I'll still do it. That is goodness. And then our happiness. That's the most important one. That happiness, which in the beginning is very hard, very, very hard. We find, but it turns into nectar at the end. Poison in the beginning, nectar at the end. That's goodness. That's good. So, for example, chanting. It's very hard, chanting, very hard to focus, to remain attentive. So it's poison in the beginning. It feels like poison. Oh my God. Yeah, I have to chant. It's so hard. But in the long run, it is for our best. We will reap the benefits, and at the end, it'll be nectar. So that happiness, which is nectar in the beginning, but poison in the end, that is in the mode of passion. So eating, for example, we can eat 1 gulab jamun, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then after a while, it becomes sickly. And you feel this is poison. I don't want any more gulab jamun, please. So in the beginning, it's nice, but at the end, it turns into poison. And that happiness, which is unhappiness in the beginning, poison in the beginning and poison at the end, that is mode of ignorance. So drinking is bad in no matter what condition. So drinking in the beginning is bad, drinking at the end. So, the drunkards, they end their lives by drinking. It's poison. So what is lesson? what seems like poison in the beginning, like mantra meditation, will become nectar in the end. And what is nectar in the beginning, sense enjoyment, will become poison in the end. So we have to understand. We have to make an effort. Sometimes to read scriptures is very difficult. But if we make the effort, we will reap the rewards in due course of time. We will get the benefit. So that is the idea, that we try to work according to spiritual practice. And it is hard. It will be difficult. There's no doubt about it. Because our nature is to enjoy. And sometimes taking a spiritual path means a little bit of austerity. But that austerity is worthwhile. The reason being, that austerity will take us to our original home, to the spiritual world. And that austerity is needed to break our conditioning in this material world, to get free from these three modes of material nature. These three modes of material nature have captured us. And Krishna again and again and again is talking about how these three modes are just controlling our very action. That worker who works against the injunction of the scriptures, who's obstinate, insults others, who's lazy, is in ignorance. But that worker who is attached to the fruits and is greedy, envious, is in the mode of passion. But that person who does his duty without false ego, with great determination, whether it's going to be a success or failure, it doesn't matter, is in the mode of goodness. So Krishna is giving so much information about how we can assess where we are and improve ourselves. If we're in a mode of ignorance, we can at least go up to the mode of passion. If we're in the mode of passion, rise to the mode of goodness. And if somehow or other we're in the mode of goodness, that's the best place to go to the next level, which is Sato, Shuddha Sattva, pure mode of goodness. That's the spiritual platform. And all of these guidance given by Krishna is very, very important to give us this foundation, so that when we begin our practice, when we continue with our practice, we have the Bhagavad Gita as our solid basis from which we can progress. So I wanted to stop there and ask any questions, if there are any. It's quite a long chapter, and it's quite a challenging chapter as well. Krishna gives a summary, but he also gives a lot of detail, In just a few words, he gives so much knowledge. So, anybody, any questions? We lost a few devotees today. Okay, so we can stop there. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.